Usually when you fire up a new video game, like that very first level is just a designated safe space. It's a tutorial.
Oh, totally. The enemies basically move in slow motion.
Right. The traps are painted in bright neon colors, and the game is basically holding your hand, whispering, don't worry, you're going to be a hero.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed entirely around building confidence. The game just wants to teach you the basic mechanics without punishing you for not understanding the nuances yet.
Exactly. But then you look at Curse of Strahd, which is arguably the most famous, most played Dungeons & Dragons campaign of the modern era.
Oh, without a doubt.
And its built-in tutorial is a place literally called Death House.
Which is just a great welcoming name, right?
So comforting. But today, we are taking a stack of expert sources to answer a very specific question for you Dungeon Masters out there.
Yeah.
What is the absolute best way to start the first session of the campaign, specifically using the notorious Death House mini-adventure?
Because it is a beast to run.
It really is. So we are going to build a blueprint for you to make that first session unforgettable, perfectly balanced, and rich with hidden meaning. We're pulling from the official D&D module excerpts, the atmospheric rules laid out in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and some heavily play-tested advice from two fantastic DM-focused YouTube channels.
Right. We've got Flute's Loot and XP to level 3.
Because the tension surrounding Death House is just really fascinating.
Yeah.
On one hand, it's widely considered an atmospheric masterpiece, right? It completely immerses you in gothic horror.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it is infamous for accidentally murdering level 1 parties.
Which is a problem.
It's a huge problem. It often leaves players feeling, frustrated and cheated rather than genuinely frightened, which is the opposite of what you want in a horror game.
So to fix that, we need to look at how we even get the players to the front door.
Yeah.
The official module gives a couple of distinct hooks to pull players out of their normal fantasy world and into the cursed domain of Barovia.
Yeah, so one of the most traditional is the plea for help hook.
Okay, set the scene for that one.
Right, so you picture your players sitting in a typical bustling tavern somewhere in, the Forgotten Realms. A colorfully dressed stranger approaches their table looking totally exhausted and hands them a sealed letter.
The classic D&D start.
Exactly. It's supposedly from a burgomaster, begging for heavily armed assistance. The players take the bait, step outside the tavern to investigate, and suddenly this thick fog rolls in, completely swallowing them up and dropping them directly into Strahd's domain.
It's very classic fantasy. You receive a quest, you travel to the destination.
Yeah.
But the second option, the creeping fog, it just feels so much more insidious.
Oh, I vastly prefer the fog. It really shifts the agency away from the players in a terrifying way.
Right.
In this scenario, your players are just traveling down a lonely dirt road in their normal world. They set up camp for the night, they set a watch, they go to sleep, and as the fire dies down, this unnaturally thick gray mist simply creeps into their campsite.
Just totally silent.
Yeah, the DM can describe the absolute silence that falls over the woods. And when the players wake up, the trees around them have literally changed shape. The sky is this perpetual, sickly gray.
And they can't leave, right.
No matter which direction they try to walk, the road curves and funnels them straight into the dilapidated village of Barovia.
They haven't just traveled somewhere new. They've been kidnapped by the landscape itself.
Oh, exactly. It immediately tells them they are not in control.
But wait, before we march them right up to Death House, the creator over at XP to level 3 brings up a really compelling alternative.
He does, yeah.
He suggests throwing both of those fog hooks out the window and starting the campaign on the complete opposite side of the map in a fortified village called Kresk.
His perspective is incredibly valuable, especially if you want to run a specific type of horror. He points out that if you drop players right into the village of Barovia, Castle Ravenloft is immediately looming over them.
Right. The final boss is literally casting a shadow on their level 1 characters.
Yeah, and it can really rush the narrative. By starting them on the far western edge of the map in Kresk at level 3, you create a slow burn. The players have to slowly work their way across this corrupted land.
They're hearing rumors about the vampire lord, maybe dealing with his werewolves, or, corrupt politicians, but he remains this mythological boogeyman for a long time.
Exactly. They see the offense of his rule long before they see the man himself. But crucially, starting in Kresk means skipping Death House entirely.
See, if you skip it, aren't players going to feel a bit cheated? I mean, if Death House is this legendary atmospheric masterpiece, bypassing it feels like going to an amusement park and skipping the most famous haunted mansion ride.
That's a fair point.
If starting in Kresk is this massive, overwhelming open-world sandbox, Death House is the enclosed, meticulously designed tutorial level, like an escape room. It traps you, it forces you to learn the rules of the world, and it sets the tone. So why do some expert DMs beg us to skip it?
Well, that brings us to how DMs traditionally run pre-written modules. Critics hate Death House because if you run it exactly as written in the book, it feels completely disconnected from the main plot of Curse of Strahd.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just this random, highly lethal, haunted house with a cult in the basement that has very little to do with Strahd himself. The players go in, they get mauled by monsters, they barely escape, and they are left wondering, like, what was the point of that detour?
It feels like deadly, punishing filler, like a meat grinder just for the sake of a meat grinder.
It does. But if used deliberately, it is the absolute perfect tone setter. The expert DM over at Flute's Loot argues that to make Death House work, you have to treat the house as a carefully constructed narrative mirror.
A narrative mirror?
Yes, everything the players encounter inside those four walls is a microcosm of the horrors waiting for them in the wider continent of Barovia. It's a scaled-down version of the entire campaign.
Okay, let's dig into that, because if a DM can pull that off, it elevates the whole experience. How does this single four-story townhouse foreshadow an entire cursed continent?
We can start with the most prominent environmental feature, which is the trap. The moment the players step through the front door of Death House, the supernatural mists close in around the porch.
Yeah.
If they try to leave, the mist literally chokes them. They are trapped inside. This perfectly mirrors the macro-level trap of Barovia itself.
Well, because those exact same mists surround the borders of the whole continent.
Exactly. You can't just walk away from the campaign. The environment itself is a cage, and the only way out is through.
You have to plunge deeper into the darkness to find an exit. And speaking of things you can't escape, what about the house itself? Because I read that if the players manage to burn Death House to the ground, it doesn't stay dead.
Oh, it's a brilliant, cruel mechanic. If the players destroy the house, the module notes that it simply rebuilds itself over the next few weeks.
Wait, really? It just pops back up?
Yep. The rot returns, the floorboards repair themselves, and it acts like nothing ever happened. And this is a massive structural spoiler for the very end of the campaign.
Oh. Because if the players manage to kill Strahd, which is the whole point of the campaign, the lore dictates that he eventually returns.
Yes. He is intrinsically bound to the land. He can't just kill him with a magic sword and permanently save the day. He is an inevitable, cyclical evil, just like the house.
It is so cool.
And beyond the physical environment, the house introduces the psychological themes of the campaign, specifically the loss of innocence. The very first thing the players interact with on the street are the ghosts of two children, Rose and Thorn.
Right, the kids out front.
Yeah. And the players eventually learn these kids were locked in their bedroom by their cultist parents and left to starve to death while the adults worshiped dark gods in the basement.
God, it is incredibly bleak. It's not just a generic skeleton jumping out of a closet. It's a deeply tragic story about family betrayal.
It establishes immediately that in Barovia, children suffer most for the sins of adults. You see this theme echoed over and over again later in the campaign.
Like the werewolves kidnapping kids, or the hags at Old Bone Grinder.
Exactly. The players learn in Session 1 that this isn't a heroic fantasy world where everyone gets saved. It's a world of victims.
And we can't forget the chant in the basement. When the players finally reach the ritual chamber deep underground, the apparitions of the cultists are chanting, "One must die, one must die,"
They are demanding a sacrifice on their altar.
which foreshadows the ultimate dark truth of the setting, right?
It really does. The dark powers, the mysterious entities that actually rule Barovia and keep Strahd imprisoned, they demand a master. Escaping the domain might require one of the player characters to make the ultimate sacrifice and take Strahd's place.
Becoming a monster themselves just to free the rest of the party. One must die.
Exactly. It's all right there in the tutorial.
Okay, I really appreciate all this thematic depth. But let's be realistic for a second here. Isn't it incredibly risky for a DM to hide all this brilliant lore in a dark basement when players are just panicking to survive?
What do you mean?
Well, if you are a level 1 wizard with, like, 6 hit points running from a monster, you aren't analyzing the thematic resonance of the architecture. How do we make sure players actually notice these Easter eggs?
Okay, fair point. It requires a very intentional approach from the DM. Flute's Loop provides a fantastic strategy using the alcoves in the basement.
The little nooks?
Yeah, right before the final boss room, there are these little nooks where the cultists kept odd trinkets. The module leaves them mostly blank, but a smart DM will fill them with incredibly specific items that pay off dozens of sessions later.
But how do you introduce a random item without it feeling like you're just, reading a list of inventory?
You focus on the sensory experience and the concept of something being mundane but wrong. For instance, you could describe a wooden box containing a broken raven's egg that feels unnaturally warm to the touch and refuses to rot.
Okay, yeah, the players will likely pocket it because it's weird.
Exactly. And much later in the campaign, they'll realize it's a direct hint about the secret society of werevens that oppose Strahd and how a powerful witch is hunting them.
Oh, that's smart. Or I saw a suggestion to put a pristine tiger skin rug in one of the dusty rooms upstairs. Tigers aren't native to the Gothic Eastern European setting of Barovia, so it instantly feels out of place.
That's a breadcrumb.
Right. Because dozens of hours later, they'll encounter an NPC traveling with a real saber-toothed tiger.
My absolute favorite suggestion, though, is placing a piece of amber with a dark, shifting sliver trapped inside it.
Ooh.
Yeah, if a player holds on to that trinket, way down the line they will discover the Amber Temple, which is the origin of all the dark magic in the realm. The payoff of realizing they've been carrying a piece of that evil in their pocket since session 1, it's mind-blowing for a player.
But to get that payoff, you have to keep them alive. Which brings us to the mechanics, because you can have all the beautiful foreshadowing in the world, but if the players die in the very first hallway, none of it matters.
No, it doesn't.
And XP to level 3 was very vocal about the fatal flaw of Death House. As a tutorial, it is entirely too lethal for level 1 and 2 characters.
The math simply does not work in the player's favor. A standard party of level 1 characters is incredibly fragile, and this house throws challenges at them that are mathematically designed to break them.
Let's look at the worst offender, the nursemaid specter on the upper floors.
Oh, she's brutal.
Right, she is a challenge rating 1 monster, which in D&D terminology usually means she should be a moderately fair fight for a group of 4 level 1 characters. But her abilities are devastating.
Yeah, on a successful hit, she deals 3d6 necrotic damage, but it gets worse.
How does it get worse?
The target then has to make a Constitution saving throw. If they fail, their maximum hit points are reduced by the amount of damage taken.
Oh, wow.
If their max hit points hit 0, they don't just go unconscious, they die instantly. Their life force is completely extinguished.
And a level 1 character usually has, what, maybe 8 to 12 hit points total?
Yeah.
One bad roll of those dice, and they are permanently dead before the campaign even starts.
You can't heal that.
Putting a one-shotting specter and later a massive shambling mound in the tutorial is like handing a player a butter knife and locking them in a cage with a
Starved bear.
Exactly. It's not horror, it's just a frustrating design flaw. So how do we fix the math without losing the scary atmosphere?
XP to level 3 offers some very concrete, actionable adjustments. For the Spectre, you have 2 choices. Either heavily nerf her damage, drop it down to a manageable 1d6 necrotic, or, even better, don't force a combat encounter at all.
Make it a social encounter.
Yeah, treat her as a tragic, confused figure. Allow the players to bypass the fight entirely with a moderately difficult social roll, like a DC 15 persuasion check. If they promise to find her bones and put her spirit to rest, she lets them pass.
That is a much better lesson for a tutorial. It teaches the players that, in Barovia, drawing your sword at every ghost you see will get you killed. Sometimes survival means talking your way out of a bad situation.
Exactly.
What about the ghouls in the basement? I know there's a notorious choke point where 4 ghouls ambush the party in a narrow corridor.
Right. A 5-foot-wide hallway means the characters can't surround the enemies. They're forced to fight in a single-file line, essentially funneling into a meat grinder. 4 ghouls against level 2 characters in that tight space is almost a guaranteed party wipe.
So what's the fix?
The fix is simple. Just cut the number of ghouls down to 2. Or if you want to keep the feeling of being overwhelmed by a horde, swap the ghouls out for 4 zombies.
Zombies change the flavor of the horror completely, because ghouls are fast, that paralyze you, which is terrifying mechanically. But zombies are slow, they're easier to hit, and they deal less damage.
It creates that classic claustrophobic trope of the undead slowly closing in.
Right, giving the players time to panic and strategize without instantly killing them.
It feels much more fair. And then we get to the basement boss. The cultists demand a sacrifice, and if the players refuse, they summon a shambling mound named Lorhoth the Decayer.
Oh boy.
A shambling mound is a massive heap of rotting vegetation that engulfs players, trapping them inside its body and crushing them. It's challenge rating 5.
Against a level 2 party, Mathematically, that is meant to be a total bloodbath.
It is wildly unbalanced. The strong recommendation here is to swap the monster entirely, or at least heavily modify its stats. Keep its hit points and damage output much lower.
What could you swap it with?
One creative DM suggested replacing it with a zombie beholder to really shock the veteran players who think they know what's coming.
Oh, that's mean. I love it.
But a more thematic fix is to run a weaker version of the mound, describing it not as plant matter, but as a mound made of rotting flesh, bones, and discarded clothing from the cult's past victims. It ties directly back into the lore of the house.
Okay, so we've balanced the monsters. But there's a psychological issue XP to level 3 brought up that I find fascinating. Why are the players even going into this dark, wet basement to begin with? The ghost kids out on the street? Just ask them to clear the monsters from the upper floors. Once the players find the kids' skeletons in the attic, most sensible parties just say, well, job's done. Let's get out of here.
This is a classic trap for dungeon masters, assuming players will walk into an obvious death trap just because it's drawn on the map. You have to give them a compelling motivation to keep descending into the dark.
You have to bait the hook based on who they are playing.
Exactly. You can pull on their empathy. Have the ghost kids appear in the attic and beg the party to go down into the basement to save their parents, who the kids genuinely believe are just trapped below.
Or, if your players are running a party of scoundrels and mercenaries, appeal to their greed. Plant a letter in the library upstairs that explicitly mentions a massive fortune in gold and jewels hidden in the cult's reliquary below.
Use their own character traits against them.
So if they take the bait, they navigate the basement, they find the Easter egg trinkets, they survive the nerfed encounters, and they finally stand in the ritual chamber.
The ghostly apparitions are chanting, "He is the ancient, he is the land, one must die."
The players realize they have a terrible choice to make. They can either sacrifice a creature on the altar, maybe a stray dog they found, or even a player character if things have gone horribly wrong and someone wants to roll a new hero, or they can refuse, which awakens the flesh mound.
But the beauty of the module is that regardless of what they choose, once the ritual is complete or the monster is dead, the house realizes they are trying to leave, and the house gets angry.
This is where you reward the players for their slow, careful pacing earlier in the session. The quiet, creepy haunted house suddenly drops the act and turns into a highly aggressive, active death trap.
Oh, it's the best part.
The descriptions of this sequence are phenomenal. You get to detail the house literally turning on them. The interior doors they previously opened with ease suddenly transform into swinging, scythe-like blades.
The glass windows they try to smash are suddenly magically bricked up.
The fireplaces start billowing thick, poisonous black smoke that rapidly fills the rooms, forcing them to run blindly through the hallways they just spent hours carefully exploring. It transforms from a slow investigation into a frantic, cinematic dash for the front door.
It is a massive adrenaline rush for the players at the end of the session. They are coughing, taking damage from the smoke, dodging blades, dragging each other out the front door, and finally collapsing onto the dirt road outside.
But wait, if we run it exactly like that, they barely survive, they stumble out the front door, coughing up smoke, they look around the village, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
If they just walk out into an empty, quiet dirt road, that feels like a terrible cliffhanger. They just went through hell, and there's no punctuation mark at the end of the sentence.
You've hit on the exact flaw of the module as written. It just ends, and the players are left standing in the street. But our expert sources deliver the final masterstroke to fix this ending and connect it to the broader campaign.
Okay, lay it on me.
When the players stumble out of the death house, gasping for air, the street isn't empty.
Who is waiting for them?
Strahd von Zarovich himself.
Oh man, that is such a cinematic visual.
He is waiting patiently in the mist. As the players collapse onto the road, bleeding and exhausted, they hear the sound of a slow, polite clap. Strahd steps out of the shadows. He is impeccably dressed, completely composed, and he doesn't attack them.
He acts as the gracious, terrifying host.
He calmly thanks the party for dealing with a cult that he found distasteful and offensive to his land. And then he hands one of the terrified players a formal wax-sealed invitation to join him for dinner at Castle Ravenloft before turning into a swarm of bats or mist and vanishing.
That seamlessly bridges the tutorial right into the main campaign. It immediately establishes the villain's presence, his absolute power, and his twisted sense of nobility. He isn't just a monster hiding in a dungeon waiting to be slain, he's watching them.
It gives the players a face to fear and a direct connection to the overarching plot. They aren't just random adventurers who stumbled into a haunted house anymore. They are Strahd's newly invited playthings.
So, if we pull all of these threads together, you've essentially built the perfect haunted house experience for your players.
A true blueprint.
Right. You want to pull them in with the creeping fog, making the landscape itself the kidnapper. You want to use the house's architecture and hidden trinkets like the amber and the raven's egg to secretly foreshadow the campaign's darkest twists.
You absolutely must adjust the math on those cheap one-shot kills to prioritize storytelling and tension over accidental party wipes.
And finally, you end the night face-to-face with the vampire lord himself, politely applauding their survival.
It takes a deeply flawed, highly punishing tutorial and turns it into a masterclass in gothic horror storytelling.
It makes me want to roll up a brand new character and run into the fog right now just to experience it.
Well, before you pack your dice bag, I want to leave you with one final, deeply unsettling idea drawn directly from Van Richten's guide, specifically concerning the horror of age and decay.
Okay.
We've spent this whole time talking about the physical dangers of the house, right? The scythe blades, the ghouls, the smoke.
The things that drain your hit points.
But in Ravenloft, true horror lingers in the mind. Imagine this scenario for your players. As they are frantically fleeing the poisonous black smoke of the death house, dodging the blades, their lungs burning, one of them catches their reflection in a dusty antique mirror hanging in the main hallway.
Oh no.
But the person staring back at them isn't the youthful, vibrant adventurer who walked in a few hours ago. They see an older, rotting, decrepit version of themselves staring back.
Wow.
Their eyes are hollow, their hair is thinning, their skin is sagging. It's just a flash, a split-second hallucination before the smoke obscures the glass and they're forced to keep running.
But it plants a lingering psychological seed in their mind.
Exactly. It tells the players that Barovia isn't just trapping their physical bodies. The land itself is already feeding on their lifespans.
What a terrifying thought to leave them with. The house didn't just hurt them, it aged their very soul. Thank you for diving into the mist with us, and we'll catch you on the next Junk Dive.